go. So Joshua Tiemans with the last question of the night, which I like a lot for its sort of personal and philosophical aspects. And Joshua Tiemans wants to know, what is the antidote to narcissism? And I actually had an instant reaction to that, and I'll tell you what I think it is, and it is humility. And you can tell an awful lot about a person by their level of humility, and usually the way to tell about a person's humility level is through whether or not they're willing to laugh at themselves. Not denigrate themselves, not self-deprecating humor in limited doses is charming. People who put themselves down all the time have serious confidence and self-esteem issue problems, and that's not what I'm talking about at all. But the ability to laugh at yourself is really important as an indicator for mental health. Narcissists can't do it. Arrogant people can't. Narcissism and arrogance very related. Can't laugh at themselves. They can't. They're psychologically incapable of doing it. So humility is the antidote for narcissism. And when I was in my mid-20s, early to mid-20s, I was extremely arrogant, really angry, arrogant, militant about things, and went everywhere around, with a big neon sign around my neck that said I was a film director, because that had some value, obviously. And it's a sign of lack of self-esteem and self-respect. It's really just a sign of somebody who's really not very happy with himself. And I had a lot of humility beaten into me by life through the course of my 20s, 30s, and 40s. It was only as I started writing Eject that I started to come out of this, and realize from the comments of people like you that I had to be a better person than I was. I had to step up into this role that I had somehow found myself in, step up to the level of the comments and the feedback and the things that were coming from people like you. So, Rand Paul is Treasury Secretary, by the way. How did I miss that? Despite what David Wellman says, I think it'd be awesome. Somebody to investigate the Fed. But look, back to humility and narcissism. So, why is narcissism is dangerous? Because it's a narcissistic president has perception problems. They're not able to process information effectively or reasonably. When everything is about you, then you are extremely susceptible to being told what you want to hear. When everything's about you, and God knows we're seeing this with this guy, you will be surrounded by yes men, and yes men will give you information that will make you happy, which is good news about you, and you end up in a little cavern of a little bubble of information, and you can no longer make decisions because you don't have any information that's reliable because of your narcissistic tendencies and your desire to be loved all the time and to hear great things about yourself. You don't see the whole picture. You can't. You're not psychologically capable of it. So, little self-deprecating humor every now and then in the face of confidence is an indication that you've got somebody who's got a sense of humor. And I was looking for the quote, and before I even got to it, Arcturn was talking about, I guess Dave Big Booty wanted to know what Reagan's quote was. The classic example of this kind of thing is Ronald Reagan's self-deprecating humor when he was being accused of being too old. In the first debate against Mondale in the second election, in his re-election in 1984, he was very bad. He was tired, and he was bumbling, and he looked old and confused, and people were saying the man's too old to run for re-election. And so Ronald Reagan went straight to it. And he said in the second debate, talking to Walter Mondale, he said, I will not, we got the direct quote here from a couple people, Ronald Reagan said, I will not, for purposes of this campaign, exploit the youth and inexperience of my opponent, meaning Walter Mondale, who by then was in his 60s probably. And it was over. The issue of age was over because Reagan made a joke about his own age. And that was the power of self-deprecating humor and the confidence that comes from being genuinely humble about things. It's impossible to imagine Barack Obama joking seriously about himself. Every now and then you'll see a kind of a forced smile. But even then, the humor he uses about himself is more of like a, well, Michelle won't let me do this, or Michelle won't let me do that, which is revealing in its own way, frankly. But it's not self-deprecating. He can't joke with himself. A great example also of this kind of thing, Churchill had it in abundance, I expect history to be kind to me because I intend to write it myself, and, and things like that. Churchill joked about himself quite a lot, but one of the classic examples was Kennedy, who there's some serious evidence that there was voter fraud in Chicago that won him the election. And Kennedy apparently, I forget the exact line here, but was questioned about this not long after the election, and he said that he, was basically accused of his father buying him votes. And I think it was Kennedy who said, "Yeah, I had a talk with about this, and got into an argument with my father." He said, "Listen, son, I'll be damned if I'm going to pay for a landslide." And that kind of thing is the ability to go at your own weakness and joke about it. Just to say it, I unlike Bill Maher and other people that need to be hustled into and out of events, and the great man is finished now. I mean it. I will be the last person out of the room, unless I have a flight to catch. I'll be the last person there. If you want a picture taken, you want to talk, you want to just chat, you're the people that pay my salary. I'm only here because of you. It's not an obligation. It's an opportunity, and it's an honor, and it's a privilege. But so, I'll be signing autographs. I'll be autographing DVDs, and that's an uncomfortable thing to do, believe it or not, if you're a person with some actual humility beaten into you. I'm still uncomfortable when somebody says, "Would you sign a book?" I'm not uncomfortable. That's not exactly the word. Uncomfortable it seems to indicate it's unpleasant. It's not that. It's just that I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to be like, "Oh, well, of course you want me to sign an autograph." So when I sign something for somebody, like a picture or a DVD or something, I'll say, I'll hand it back to him and I'll say, "I just want to warn you," or maybe before I sign, I said, "I'm the only guy who, when he signs when he autographs a DVD, it actually lowers its value on eBay." That's the kind of thing that's just kind of fun and lighthearted and is self-deprecating, and it's a sign that I'm not so full of myself, and I don't want to be perceived as being full of myself, because I'm not full of myself. And on a much deeper level, people talk about things like the Common Sense Resistance or the work we do here and membership and stuff, and it's like, it's not about me. I don't want it named after me. I don't want anything about me. It's not about me. I had to be talked into BillWhittle.com. I wanted to call it something else, but the guys who were doing the marketing when we went off on our own said, "You're in a show called Afterburner, you're in a show called Firewall, you're in a show called Trifecta. Do you know what all these things have in common?" I said, "No." I said, "None of them have your name on it." I said, "Oh. So people who saw you on one show don't know how to find you on another one." "Okay. What do you think we ought to call the website?" I said to these guys. "I want to call it like I said, "You should call it BillWhittle.com so that people know where to find you." Okay. So that's fine. But, it's not just a sign of mental health. It's a sign of moral health. People who take themselves too seriously, people who assume that they're big celebrities or have to be hustled out of the room because they don't want to talk to the hoi polloi who are so, you don't need people like that around. It's a nice balance, and it's an important balance. In order to do the work that I do, or any kind of public person or something like that, it requires a great deal of self-confidence to get out there. And, this is my real name and my real face. So that requires self-confidence. And I have self-confidence. But there's a difference between self-confidence and arrogance, and there's certainly a difference between self-confidence and narcissism. And the difference is that a self-confident person can not only laugh at themselves and joke about their own weaknesses and talk about their own weaknesses, but a healthy person understands that by talking about their own weaknesses and inabilities and insecurities, they are in fact not only exhibiting strength, but gaining strength. There's a great deal of freedom that comes with being honest with people and admitting, "Look, here are my biggest faults. These are my great weaknesses." Once you get those out in the open, if you're being honest about it, it's actually extremely liberating. Extremely liberating. There it is. Reagan could joke about himself. Bush joked about himself a lot. I think Bill Clinton probably could joke about himself, but certainly this president can't. And I genuinely believe him to be a pathological narcissist, a clinically mentally ill guy. I really mean it. I really do. So In any event, that'll do it for episode number 89, I want to say, of the Stratosphere Lounge, which, as we've said before, includes a number of misfires and unrecorded shows. But coming back to the narcissism thing, keep sending the money, peons. I've got a large cocaine and hooker habit that I need to maintain, and you certainly don't need the money. And given the greatness of the work that I do, this should be the least that you should all be able to just chuck as much cash my way as you possibly can manage. And be damn grateful for the opportunity. There are some people that think that way. As for me, the most important part of any business is maintaining the correct relationship between the vendor and the client. And I'm the vendor and you're the client. And the customer is always right. My dad was a hotel manager, and I learned the value of that at an early age. The bottom line is, many of you out there are parting with hard-earned money in exchange for the work that I do, and it's given me a life I never could have imagined. And every time I walk out to my car or my apartment, I'm overwhelmingly grateful for the fact that some of you, find it, worth your support. And I know there are large numbers of you out there who would support it if you had the means to, and I never lose track of that either. But I try to end every show with a note of thanks and gratitude, which comes from a place of deep humility, honestly. It's a place of real, genuine humility and gratitude and thanks for the opportunity that I've been given by all of you fine people to go out there and say the things that we all believe. And I didn't invent any of this stuff. None of this stuff is about me. It's just my ability, perhaps, to put into words the things that we all feel. And that's an enormous responsibility, an enormous honor and privilege, and it's one that I'm very grateful for all of you to have given me the opportunity to do it, because I was really choking on it before I had a chance to get it out. So thank you for everything. And we're getting those time over targets up there. If you want to become a member at BillWhittle.com, we'd love to have your business, and we'll try our best to maintain it. But if you can't do that, we understand that too. So until next time, this is the Stratosphere Lounge number 89. That's an awful lot of yapping and hot air coming out of this one individual, but as long as you guys are sticking around, I'll be sticking around. So hopefully we'll see you next week. And until then, be careful and don't give up, and don't let the bastards get you down, because this idea that attracts all of us is worth fighting for and dying for, and it's also worth being happy for. So try to keep your spirits up until we talk next time, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay, so long. Bye-bye.